In my previous videos, I showed you how to use the basic panel to edit your photos. I also went through the detail panel to show you how you can sharpen and denoise your photos, as well as showing you what the histogram does and how you can use it to your advantage, basically, to understand what your photo consists of, as well as knowing how to edit your photo better by using the tools in the histogram. Today I would like to merge all of those tools together to show you how I can edit this photo, which is slightly underexposed, and I would like to also include masks. So masks are a very powerful tool and you can really use them to your advantage to make a photo look much better and make colors pop out and certain areas of the photo stand out from the rest of the picture. So let's immediately start with this photo. As you can see in the histogram, we can already see that we have a lot of dark areas, while the brighter parts of the picture are sort of a bit subdued. So the picture is definitely slightly underexposed, but not clipping. So we can see that we only have very little areas which are clipping in black right here, and a single small clipping area on the highlights, which is practically the sun which is setting right here. So what I would like to do first and foremost to start fixing my photo is to use lens correction and apply the profile for my lens. This fixes the horizon line and it makes it straight, and now I can rotate my picture to make sure that it's straight. Now we have a straight horizon and we can dive into the basic panel immediately. So I'm going to quickly go through the basic panel and I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm going to do. So as you can see, the sky right here is just slightly overexposed in my opinion. So obviously when you're shooting a sunset scene, you have the areas which are closer to you, which are a bit underexposed while the sun is still setting, so the sky is a bit brighter. I was actually using filters for this image, however the sun still brightened up the sky a bit too much. So I'm going to reduce the highlights to level out the light in the sky with the rest of the photo. However, you can see that the foreground is still slightly underexposed. So I'm going to increase the shadows, and you can see that the photo immediately comes alive when you increase the shadows and you brighten up a bit the dark areas of the photo. So this looks like a good balance between the two. What I can see is that I can actually increase my whites a bit and maybe increase my blacks just slightly as well. What I can do to compensate for the increase in blacks is to increase the contrast just slightly. I'm going to also increase vibrance to make sure that the colors are popping out quite well. And now what I'd like to do is I would like to mess around with the temperature and tint just a bit to see whether I can get better color out of this picture. I think this should do nicely. So what I want to show you is that the histogram is now much more balanced. You can see that my shadow areas have spread out over to the midtones, and you can see that the highlight areas have also spread out a bit between the midtones and the highlights themselves. What I want to show you now is how you can use masks to your advantage on a photo like this. So I can click on the mask right here and I can immediately either decide to select the sky right here, which will go through practically the image and select the sky for me, as you can see, and it's also selecting the parts of the sea which are actually reflecting the light in the sky, as well as some areas on the rocks right here which are reflecting the actual light in the sky. And what I can do here is I can decrease the exposure just slightly to balance the color even more, maybe increase contrast a bit, and maybe play around with the temperature right here to make it just slightly less warm. What I want to do now is I want to actually increase the color in the sea right here in this particular area around this rock in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a brush, make sure that I have a flow and density somewhere in the middle of the slider, because if they are too high, they will practically affect too much of the image. And what I want is a soft selection. So I'm going to brush over the areas that I want to select. You can see that I have feather enabled as well, which allows me to move close to the rocks as much as I like without affecting them too much. So I'm going to brush over right here to select the areas that I want to affect, and now I can start playing around with these areas immediately. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to increase the shadows. I'm not going to touch the exposure slider here, because if I do mess around with the exposure slider, you can see that I'm affecting the areas which I brushed only, which is actually looking a bit too fake. So I'm going to reset that slider and only affect the shadows, the whites just a bit, and maybe increase the blacks as well. I can also increase the contrast, which makes the colors a bit deeper. But now I would also like to introduce slightly more blues to the image and slightly more greens, and increase the saturation. Now let's see what that mask actually does. You can see how much of a difference the mask is actually making. We can also decide to brush areas which are not being affected too much. We can reduce flow and density to maybe make it even more subtle, and this looks quite good to me. So what I would like to add before moving on to removing some areas which I do not like these dust spots on my image, is I would like to create a bit of a linear gradient at the bottom right here. I'm going to actually add yet another linear gradient on the other side to create a bit of a vignetting effect. So I'm going to reduce exposure and maybe reduce the blacks as well, because we can clip our shadows then. And I'm going to add yet another linear gradient right here, which creates a bit more drama in the sky. So I'm happy with this particular effect because I've created a sort of vignette effect which pushes your eyes immediately towards the center of the image. What I would like to do now is I would like to use the remove brush right here. You can select the visualize spots option. You have a slider that helps you increase the visualization, and you can see that dust spots actually show up as some sort of circle right here. So I'm going to click on each one of them. You can drag your brush on top of them, and once you click back, you can see that we've removed the dust spots completely. So that's one additional trick. Two final steps. I'm going to increase the amount slider for sharpening, reduce radius just a bit. If you don't know what these do, please make sure to watch the sharpening and the noise video, which goes into detail about these particular sliders. And then I'm going to increase my masking level in order to mask out any soft details. I only want to sharpen the edges and the sort of fine detail in my image to make the image look a bit more crisp. And one final thing I would like to do, which is something which we have not covered before, is delve into the color mixer tab right here. So you can see that we have a choice, a selection of all the colors, and I would like to first and foremost increase saturation on my blues. As you can see, the sky is becoming a bit darker, which adds to the effect that we have just done previously with the vignetting effect. And I want to also make sure that the hue of my oranges is slightly towards the red side, which gives it a better looking effect for a sunset. Maybe increase saturation by a bit. We can also make sure to push the yellow slightly towards the orange side, and we can also increase saturation again for this. This is the difference that that particular change does to the image. If we take a look at before and after of this image, you can see what an amazing difference you can make by using these basic tools which I showed in my previous videos. So I hope you understand how to edit photos with these tools, and I hope that you enjoyed seeing this amazing transformation. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching as always.